I ran across the US-Mexican border in 1981 when I was 7 years old. I did not think at all I was doing anything wrong, that I was committing a crime, or that I was a criminal. I was running for my life.
The United States, a nation of an estimated 325 million people according to the latest U.S. Census, has more immigrants than any other country in the world. According to the Pew Research Center, there are an estimated 45 million immigrants in the U.S. About 11 million of these are undocumented.
I ran across the border for about 12 hours overnight, and it was me and a coyote, the guide, the smuggler. My mom and my brother ran 24 hours prior. There were surveillance helicopters with lights about 10 or 20 feet away from us at times. So we had to sit very still until the helicopter passed, and then we would immediately start running again. I was giving it my all at that age. I just thought, if I don't do this, I just pause and die here, wherever that was.
The Pew Research Center has found a decrease in the undocumented population from its peak of 12 million in 2007. The major regions of origin of undocumented immigrants are Mexico and Central America with 71%, and Asia with 13%.
So my mother was a teacher in El Salvador in 1981. This was during the Salvadoran Civil War. She was working on equal pay and equal rights for female teachers. The government didn't like that type of work. And so she received death threats at her school. And she was told that if she didn't leave the country, they would kill her and her 2 sons. She wanted to stay in El Salvador. But in fact, teachers were showing up dead all over the place. So she had 2 choices, either stay and risk being killed and her 2 sons being killed, or leave El Salvador and come to the US.
Recent arrivals represent a smaller share of all undocumented immigrants, as over 66% have been in the U.S. for more than 10 years. And according to the Migration Policy Institute, over half are at 150% to over 200% above the poverty level.
Often the media uses dehumanizing terms to describe undocumented immigrants. Terms like criminals, rapists, murderers, other terms like invasion and infestation, when in fact, the data shows a completely different story about undocumented immigrants. Let's take crime, for example. A recently published study looked at undocumented immigration and violent crime, and it concluded that there is no correlation or association between undocumented immigrants and violent crime. Another study from the Cato Institute looked at incarceration rates, and they showed that native-born Americans had an over 3-fold higher incarceration rate compared to undocumented immigrants. So you see that the data directly speaks to the misperception in the public about undocumented immigrants and crime. Let's talk about taxes. Data shows that the majority of undocumented immigrants are both employed and file taxes. This goes against the public perception that undocumented immigrants are often not employed and do not file their taxes.
Undocumented immigrants contribute significantly to state and local taxes, collectively paying an estimated $12 billion a year.
Undocumented immigrants are not eligible for social benefits, so they pay into a tax system from which they can never gain social benefits. There's a need for longitudinal data to look at this in the long run, to examine the association between undocumented immigrants' employment and tax filing.
In 1986, as part of the Immigration Reform and Control Act signed by President Reagan, around half of the undocumented immigrants were allowed to apply for a pathway to citizenship.
This administration asked the Congress to pass a comprehensive legislative package, including employer sanctions, other measures to increase enforcement of the immigration laws, and legalization. The act provides these 3 essential components.
Because we arrived in the United States before 1982, we were blessed and eligible to apply for the 1986 Immigration Reform Act, otherwise known as Amnesty. The only one since then. My mom had to show that she was employed, she went through a full background check, so a fully vetted process.
Our objective is only to establish a reasonable, fair, orderly, and secure system of immigration into this country and not to discriminate in any way against particular nations or people.
We were able to stay here because of that amnesty and really take full advantage of all the opportunities in the US, including going through the educational system. Today, I'm a physician, not a criminal or rapist or a murderer. So there's a lot of misinformation being disseminated about undocumented immigrants. The current rhetoric is emotional and based on stereotypes. What I don't see is rhetoric that is data-based. Because there's a need for longitudinal data on undocumented immigrants, we've started this initiative at lifeundocumented.org. Its remit is to collect undocumented immigrant stories and data and to disseminate these to change and balance out the media rhetoric on undocumented immigrants and to effect better policy making and policy decisions that are based on data and longitudinal data, not on fear and stereotypes. We are looking forward to partnering with others, and we hope that they will join our initiative at lifeundocumented.org. Together, we can build an immigration process and a pathway to citizenship that is humane, holistic, and globally responsive.
To learn more and get involved, visit lifeundocumented.org.